Christmas morning. The smell of cinnamon rolls, the sound of laughter echoing through a warm house, children opening presents by a crackling fire. This is what family should look like. But while my family was celebrating inside, I found my 8-year-old daughter locked in a freezing garage, forgotten like yesterday's trash. My name is Sarah Mitchell. And what happened next will make you question everything you think you know about family loyalty. If you want to hear more shocking stories like this one, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss an upload. This is just the beginning. I should have known something was wrong when my daughter Emma didn't come running to wake me up on Christmas morning. For 8 years, every December 25th had started the same way. Tiny feet thundering down the hallway. At 6 a.m., excited squeals about Santa's visit, and warm little hands shaking me awake. But this Christmas morning at my sister's house was different. The silence should have been my first warning. I was staying at Lisa's house in Denver for the holidays. My sister had insisted we spend Christmas with her family after my messy divorce from Emma's father 6 months earlier. "You need family around you, Sarah," she'd said over the phone. "Emma needs her cousins, and you need a break from everything you've been through." It sounded perfect at the time. Lisa had always been the successful one, the big house in the suburbs, the surgeon husband, 2 well-behaved teenagers. She seemed to have everything I'd lost. The arrangement had been simple enough. Emma and I would take the guest room, and we'd all have a traditional family Christmas together. Lisa's kids, Jessica and Brandon, were 16 and 14 respectively, old enough to help with Emma, and young enough to still enjoy the magic of Christmas morning. At least that's what I thought. I woke up around 8 a.m. to the sound of voices and laughter coming from downstairs. The house smelled incredible. Bacon, coffee, and something sweet baking in the oven. I stretched and turned to check on Emma in the bed next to me, but she wasn't there. The sheets were cold, like she'd been gone for hours. Maybe she'd gotten excited about Christmas and gone downstairs early. I smiled, thinking about how she must be charming everyone with her enthusiasm. Threw on my robe and headed downstairs, expecting to find Emma surrounded by wrapping paper and new toys. Instead, I found Lisa, her husband David, and their 2 kids sitting around the Christmas tree, leisurely opening presents and sipping hot chocolate. Christmas music played softly in the background, and the whole scene looked like something from a holiday magazine. "Good morning, sleepyhead," Lisa called out cheerfully. "Merry Christmas. Come join us. We saved some presents for when you woke up." I looked around the room, confused. "Where's Emma?" "What do you mean?" Lisa asked, not looking up from the gift she was unwrapping. "Emma, my daughter. Where is she?" Lisa paused, and for just a moment, I saw something flicker across her face. Oh, she was being fussy earlier. We let her go play somewhere else so she wouldn't disturb our Christmas morning. The way she said it made my stomach drop. "What do you mean, somewhere else? Where is she exactly?" Jessica, my 16-year-old niece, glanced nervously at her mother. "She's probably just upstairs in her room or something. But I'd just come from upstairs. Emma wasn't there." A cold fear began creeping up my spine. "I need to find her, now." David cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Sarah, don't get worked up, she's fine. We just needed some peace and quiet for our family time." "Our family time?" I repeated, my voice rising. "Emma is family. She's 8 years old and it's Christmas morning. Where is my daughter?" The room went silent except for the cheerful Christmas music, which now sounded mocking in the tense atmosphere. Lisa set down her present and sighed like I was being unreasonable. She was being disruptive, Sarah. Crying about missing her dad, asking for presents that weren't under the tree. The kids were trying to enjoy their Christmas, and she was ruining the mood. "So where did you put her?" My heart was pounding now. Brandon, my 14-year-old nephew, looked uncomfortable. Mom said she needed to calm down somewhere quiet. "Where?" I screamed, making everyone jump. Lisa stood up slowly, her face hardening. She's in the garage, Sarah. She needed a timeout. The garage. My 8-year-old daughter was in the garage on Christmas morning while everyone else opened presents by the fire. I ran toward the door leading to the garage, my bare feet slipping on the hardwood floors. Behind me, I could hear Lisa calling my name, but her voice sounded distant and unimportant. I yanked open the garage door and was hit immediately by a wall of freezing air. The temperature had dropped to below 0 overnight, and the garage was unheated. I could see my breath in white puffs as I frantically searched for Emma in the darkness. Emma! Emma, where are you? I called out, my voice echoing off the concrete walls. I heard a small whimper from behind David's workbench. I rushed over and found her huddled in the corner, wearing only her thin pajamas and bare feet. She was shivering so violently she could barely speak. Her lips were blue, and her fingertips were white from the cold. "Mommy?" she whispered, her voice so small I almost didn't hear it. I scooped her into my arms, and she was like a block of ice. Her skin was freezing to the touch, and she could barely lift her head. "Oh my God, Emma, how long have you been out here?" Since it was still dark," she managed between chattering teeth. "I was crying because I missed Daddy, and Aunt Lisa said I was being a baby. She said if I couldn't act like a big girl, I had to stay here until I learned my lesson." My heart shattered into a million pieces. She'd been out here for hours in freezing temperatures, while my sister's family enjoyed their perfect Christmas morning. I wrapped my robe around her tiny body and carried her back into the house. Lisa was waiting by the door with her arms crossed. "Sarah, you're overreacting. It was just a timeout." "A timeout?" I was shaking with rage. "You locked my daughter in a freezing garage for hours on Christmas morning because she missed her father?" "She was being disruptive," Lisa said coldly. "My children were trying to enjoy their Christmas, and she was ruining it with her dramatics." I looked at Jessica and Brandon, who were now standing behind their mother. Neither of them would meet my eyes. David had disappeared somewhere, probably hiding from the confrontation. "She could have died from hypothermia," I said, my voice low and dangerous. "She's 8 years old." "Don't be ridiculous," Lisa scoffed. "It was just cold. Kids are resilient." Emma was still shivering violently in my arms, her small body trying to warm up. I could feel her tears soaking through my robe. This wasn't discipline. This was cruelty. This was child abuse. "Pack your things," I told Lisa. "We're leaving. Now." "You're not going anywhere," Lisa said firmly. "It's Christmas Day, the roads are terrible, and you're being hysterical. Emma learned her lesson, and now we can all enjoy the rest of our holiday." I stared at my sister, this woman I'd trusted, with my daughter's safety, and realized I was looking at a stranger. The Lisa I thought I knew would never hurt a child. But this person standing in front of me had locked my daughter in a freezing garage for hours without a second thought. "Watch me," I said, turning toward the stairs. "Sarah, if you leave now, don't bother coming back," Lisa called after me. "I was doing you a favor letting you stay here. I was trying to help you teach your daughter some discipline." I stopped on the stairs and turned back to look at her. "Thank you for showing me who you really are." Getting Emma warm became my only priority. I carried her upstairs to our room and immediately ran a warm bath. Her skin was still pale and cold to the touch, and she couldn't stop shivering. As I helped her into the water, I noticed red marks on her wrists where she'd apparently tried to open the garage door. "It was locked, Mommy," she said quietly as I washed her hair. "I tried to get out, but the door wouldn't open. I called for you, but no one came." My hands were shaking as I dried her off and dressed her in warm clothes. While I threw our belongings into suitcases, Emma sat on the bed wrapped in blankets, still trying to get warm. She looked so small and vulnerable, and I felt like the worst mother in the world for bringing her here. "Are we leaving?" she asked. "Yes, baby. We're going home." "Is Aunt Lisa mad at me?" I knelt down in front of her and took her hands in mine. Emma, listen to me very carefully. You did nothing wrong. Nothing. Adults are supposed to protect children, especially on Christmas. What Aunt Lisa did was wrong, not you. She nodded, but I could see the confusion in her eyes. She was 8 years old, too young to understand how someone who was supposed to love her could treat her so cruelly. As I packed, I could hear the family downstairs continuing their Christmas celebration. The cheerful voices and laughter felt obscene after what had happened. How could they just go back to opening presents after what they'd done to Emma? Lisa appeared in the doorway as I was zipping up our suitcases. You're really going to leave? On Christmas Day? Over a simple timeout? Turned to face her, and for the first time in my life, I felt genuine hatred for my sister. That wasn't a timeout, Lisa. That was abuse. You locked my daughter in a freezing garage for hours because she missed her father. She could have died. You're being dramatic, Lisa said dismissively. I have 2 children of my own. I know what I'm doing. Do you? I asked. Because Jessica and Brandon looked pretty uncomfortable down there. Does David know what you did? Or is this just your special parenting technique? Lisa's face flushed red. Don't you dare judge my parenting. At least my children are well behaved and respectful. Emma has been spoiled and coddled her entire life. She needed to learn that the world doesn't revolve around her. She's 8, I said through gritted teeth. She's dealing with her parents, divorce, spending Christmas away from her father, and you decided to punish her for having normal emotions about it. I was trying to help you, Lisa insisted. You asked me to include her in our family Christmas, and I did. But she was disrupting everything with her crying and whining. My children deserve to enjoy their holiday without listening to that. I picked up our suitcases and took Emma's hand. Your children watched you abuse a little girl and said nothing. What does that tell you about the family you've created? As we walked downstairs, I could see David sitting by the Christmas tree, deliberately avoiding eye contact. Jessica and Brandon were on their phones, probably texting their friends about the crazy aunt who couldn't control her kid. Sarah, wait, Lisa called as I reached for the front door. Where are you going to go? All the hotels will be booked on Christmas Day. I turned back to look at her one last time. That's not your problem anymore. You'll regret this, she said. You're overreacting, and when you calm down, you'll realize I was right. I opened the door and stepped out into the cold morning air with Emma. The only thing I regret is trusting you. The drive home to Colorado Springs was treacherous. Snow was falling heavily, and the roads were mostly empty except for emergency vehicles and the occasional family heading to Christmas dinner. Emma fell asleep in the back seat, finally warm under a pile of blankets, but I kept checking on her every few minutes to make sure she was okay. My phone buzzed constantly with text messages from Lisa, but I didn't read them. I didn't want to hear her justifications or her attempts to minimize what she'd done. Instead, I focused on getting Emma safely home and figuring out what to do next. When we finally pulled into our driveway, our little duplex had never looked so welcoming. It wasn't much, a 2-bedroom rental with outdated appliances and thin walls, but it was ours. More importantly, it was a place where Emma was safe and loved. I carried our bags inside while Emma curled up on the couch with her favorite stuffed animal. The house was cold since we'd been gone for 3 days, so I turned up the heat and made hot chocolate while we waited for it to warm up. Mommy, Emma said softly, why did Aunt Lisa lock me in the garage? I sat down next to her and pulled her close. This was the conversation I'd been dreading during the entire drive home. How do you explain to a child that someone who's supposed to love them treated them cruelly? Sometimes grown-ups make very bad choices, I said carefully. Aunt Lisa made a bad choice when she put you in the garage. It wasn't your fault, and it wasn't okay. But she's family, Emma said, repeating what I'd always taught her about the importance of family bonds. Being family doesn't give someone the right to hurt you, I explained. Love means keeping each other safe and happy. What Aunt Lisa did wasn't love. Emma was quiet for a long time, processing this information. Finally, she asked, "Are we still going to see Aunt Lisa?" "Not for a while," I said honestly. "Maybe not ever." That evening, after Emma had gone to bed, I finally looked at the messages from Lisa. There were 17 of them, ranging from defensive to angry to manipulative. "You're overreacting, and you know it. Emma needs to learn discipline. You're raising a spoiled brat. I can't believe you'd end our relationship over this. David thinks you've lost your mind. We were trying to help you. Don't come crawling back when you realize how wrong you are." The final message had arrived just an hour ago. I told Mom and Dad what happened. They agree that you're being ridiculous. Emma was fine. My parents. Of course, Lisa had called them, with her version of events. I could already imagine the conversation. How I was an unstable single mother who couldn't handle discipline. How Lisa was just trying to help. How I was tearing the family apart over nothing. I called my mother, knowing I needed to get ahead of Lisa's narrative. "Sarah?" Mom answered on the second ring. "Lisa told us what happened. Honey, you can't just leave on Christmas Day over a little time out." "Mom, she locked Emma in an unheated garage for hours in below freezing temperatures. Emma could have died from hypothermia." There was a pause. "Lisa said it was just a brief time out because Emma was being disruptive. It wasn't brief, and the garage was freezing. Emma's lips were blue when I found her." "Well," Mom said slowly, "maybe Lisa's method was a bit harsh, but Emma does need structure. Since the divorce, she's been acting out more. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. Even my own mother was taking Lisa's side. She's 8 years old, Mom. She missed her father on Christmas morning. That's not acting out. That's being human. You know Lisa loves Emma," Mom continued. "She would never hurt her intentionally. Maybe you should apologize and work this out. It's Christmas after all." I hung up the phone and sat in the dark living room, feeling more alone than I'd ever felt in my life. The next few days brought a harsh reality I wasn't prepared for. One by one, family members called to share their opinions about Christmas Day, and almost all of them sided with Lisa. My aunt called to tell me I was being too sensitive. My cousin texted that I was causing unnecessary drama. Even my grandmother, who I'd always been close to, suggested that maybe I should be the bigger person and apologize. The worst call came from my father on December 28th. "Sarah, you need to fix this," he said, without even saying hello. "Lisa is heartbroken. She was trying to help you, and you've thrown it back in her face. Dad, she locked Emma in a freezing garage for hours. How is that helping?" "It was discipline," he said firmly. "Something Emma clearly needs. That child has been running wild since your divorce, and someone needs to set boundaries. She's been dealing with trauma from her parents' divorce," I shot. "She doesn't need to be locked in a garage. She needs understanding and support." "She needs structure," Dad insisted. "And if you can't provide it, then maybe Lisa was right to step in." "Are you seriously suggesting that what Lisa did was okay?" "I'm suggesting that you're being stubborn and dramatic. Lisa has raised 2 wonderful children. She knows what she's doing." I hung up on him, shaking with anger and disbelief. This was my family. People who had known Emma since birth, who claimed to love her, and they were defending someone who had abused her. Over the next week, the messages and calls continued. Extended family members shared their opinions on social media, subtly suggesting that I was an overprotective mother who couldn't handle criticism. Lisa posted photos from Christmas morning on Facebook, pictures of her perfect family opening, presents by the fireplace with captions about grateful hearts and family traditions. The photos made me sick. While she was taking those pictures, Emma was locked in the garage, freezing and scared. But everyone who saw them commented about what a beautiful Christmas it looked like. I I started documenting everything. I took photos of the red marks on Emma's wrists that had taken days to fade. I wrote down everything Emma had told me about that morning. How long she'd been in the garage, how she'd tried to get out, how no one had come when she called for help. I researched hypothermia symptoms and documented how cold Emma had been when I found her. Part of me was gathering evidence for potential legal action, but mostly I was documenting it for my own sanity. When everyone around you is telling you that you're wrong, you start to question your own perception of reality. Emma, meanwhile, was struggling with the aftermath. She had nightmares about being trapped in cold, dark places. She became clingy and anxious whenever I left her with anyone, even her regular babysitter. The confident, outgoing little girl who had been excited about Christmas had been replaced by a scared, withdrawn child who flinched when people raised their voices. I found a child therapist who specialized in trauma, and Emma started seeing her twice a week. Dr. Martinez confirmed what I already knew. Emma was showing signs of trauma from psychological abuse. What happened to Emma was absolutely abusive, Dr. Martinez told me during one of our sessions. Isolating a child, exposing them to extreme temperatures, ignoring their distress, these are all forms of psychological and physical abuse. You did the right thing by removing her from that situation. It was the first time in weeks that anyone had validated my decision. I started crying right there in her office, overwhelmed by relief that I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't overreacting, that my instincts as a mother had been right. 3 weeks after Christmas, I made the hardest decision of my life. I called Child Protective Services and filed a report against Lisa. I had wrestled with this choice for days, knowing it would destroy any remaining family relationships. But Emma's nightmares and Dr. Martinez's concerns had convinced me that this wasn't just a family dispute, it was child abuse. The CPS investigator, Maria Santos, was a kind but thorough woman who took Emma's case seriously. She interviewed Emma using age-appropriate techniques, documented her ongoing trauma symptoms, and reviewed the photos I had taken of Emma's injuries. She also interviewed me extensively about what had happened and what I had witnessed. "Mrs. Mitchell," Maria said after completing her investigation, "what happened to Emma meets the legal definition of child abuse and neglect. Your sister created a dangerous situation that could have resulted in serious injury or death. Emma shows clear signs of trauma from the experience. The validation was overwhelming, but it came with a price. Maria had to interview Lisa as part of the investigation, which meant my sister now knew I had reported her to authorities. The fallout was immediate and brutal. Lisa called me screaming, "How dare you involve CPS in our family business? You've lost your mind, Sarah. I could lose my job over this. David's reputation could be ruined." "You should have thought about that before you abused my daughter," I replied calmly. "I didn't abuse anyone. It was a timeout. Kids have timeouts all the time." "Not in freezing garages for hours, Lisa. Normal people don't do that." Within hours, my phone was buzzing with furious messages from family members. My parents were ashamed of me. My cousins thought I had gone too far. My aunt accused me of destroying the family over nothing. But I also received some unexpected support. Jessica, my 16-year-old niece, sent me a private message on social media. "Aunt Sarah, I'm sorry about what happened to Emma. I wanted to help her, but Mom said she needed to learn a lesson. I felt bad about it the whole time." That message meant more to me than she could ever know. At least one person in that house had recognized that what happened was wrong. The CPS investigation concluded that Lisa had committed child abuse and neglect. While Emma wasn't in immediate danger since she didn't live with Lisa, CPS required Lisa to complete parenting classes and anger management counseling. They also put a restriction in place preventing Lisa from being alone with Emma without supervision. Lisa was furious about the restrictions, but what really shocked me was learning about her pattern of behavior. During their investigation, CPS discovered that this wasn't an isolated incident. Other family members quietly admitted that Lisa had always been harsh with children, using extreme punishment methods that others had overlooked or excused. My cousin, Rachel, finally told me that Lisa had locked her son in a closet for 2 hours during a family gathering the previous year. I was scared to say anything because she's so good at making you feel like you're overreacting, Rachel confessed. It turned out that Lisa's perfect parenting had always included elements of psychological abuse, but because her children were well-behaved and successful, everyone had assumed her methods were just strict but effective. Nobody had questioned whether fear-based discipline was actually healthy. The legal consequences extended beyond CPS. Because Lisa worked as a school administrator, the abuse finding had to be reported to her employer. She was placed on administrative leave pending their own investigation. David, who had witnessed the abuse and done nothing to stop it, faced questions from his medical practice partners about his judgment and character. "This is all your fault," Lisa screamed at me during one of her last phone calls. "You've destroyed my life over nothing. Emma is fine. Kids are resilient." But Emma wasn't fine, and resilience shouldn't be a requirement for surviving childhood. By February, the family lines had been drawn. It was me and Emma on one side, and everyone else on the other. The divide was complete and brutal. My parents had made it clear that unless I apologized to Lisa and dropped the CPS case, I was no longer welcome at family gatherings. My siblings had chosen Lisa's side, claiming I was vindictive and destructive. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was being punished and ostracized for protecting my daughter from abuse. The family that had always preached about loyalty and sticking together had abandoned me the moment I refused to enable their toxic behavior. But the hardest part was watching Emma process the loss of her extended family. She asked about her cousins, her grandparents, her aunts and uncles. How do you explain to an 8-year-old that these people had chosen to support the person who hurt her rather than protect her? "Don't they love me anymore?" Emma asked one evening while we were making dinner together. "They love you," I said carefully. "But sometimes grown-ups make bad choices about how to show love. Right now, they're making the choice to support Aunt Lisa instead of making sure you're safe. Will they ever want to see me again? I don't know, sweetheart. But what I do know is that real love means keeping you safe and happy. And that's what I'm going to do, even if it means we don't see them for a while." Emma nodded solemnly, but I could see the sadness in her eyes. She was losing her entire extended family because they couldn't accept that one of their own had done something wrong. The isolation was crushing for both of us. I had always been close to my family, and suddenly finding myself completely cut off felt like a death. But I also felt a strange sense of clarity. For the first time in my life, I was seeing my family clearly. Their dysfunction, their tendency to protect the perpetrator rather than the victim, their willingness to sacrifice a child's safety to maintain their comfortable fiction that they were all good people. Dr. Martinez helped me understand that this dynamic was probably not new. Families that rally around abusers often have a long history of enabling toxic behavior, she explained. They've learned that it's easier to silence the victim than to confront the abuser. She was right. Looking back, I could see the pattern. When my cousin had been molested by our uncle, the family had demanded she stay quiet to avoid causing problems. When my brother had been caught stealing money from our grandmother, everyone had made excuses for him and blamed external circumstances. The family had always prioritized image over truth, comfort over justice. In March, I received an unexpected call from Jessica, my niece. She was crying. "Aunt Sarah, I need to tell you something," she said. "Mom has been different since Christmas. She's angry all the time, and she's taking it out on Brandon and me. She keeps saying that you ruined our family, and that we can't trust you anymore." My heart broke for Jessica. She was dealing with the consequences of her mother's actions, watching her family fall apart, and being fed a narrative that I was the villain. "Jessica, I want you to know that none of this is your fault," I told her. "And if you ever need help, you can call me." "I know what Mom did to Emma was wrong," she said quietly. I've always known she can be mean when she's angry, but everyone acts like it's normal. That phone call confirmed what I had suspected. Lisa's abuse wasn't limited to that Christmas morning. She had been psychologically abusing her own children for years, but because they were successful and well-behaved, nobody had questioned her methods. 2 weeks later, Jessica called CPS herself. She reported her mother's pattern of emotional abuse and excessive punishment. Within days, CPS opened a new investigation into Lisa's treatment of her own children. The family was furious, but this time their anger was directed at Jessica, not me. A 16-year-old girl had become the family scapegoat for exposing the truth about her mother. I realized then that this was bigger than Emma's Christmas morning trauma. This was about a family system that had been protecting an abuser for years. It's been 2 years since that Christmas morning, and Emma and I have built a new life together. It's smaller than what we had before. No big family gatherings, no cousins to play with, no grandparents spoiling her with presents. But it's honest, and it's safe, and it's filled with people who actually love and protect her. Emma is thriving now. The nightmares have stopped, her confidence has returned, and she's learned that she can trust the adults in her life to keep her safe. She still sees Dr. Martinez occasionally, but mostly to check in and process her feelings about losing her extended family. We've created new traditions and found a chosen family of friends who celebrate our holidays with us. Emma has become close to my neighbor's daughter, and we often spend weekends with families from her school. These relationships are built on mutual respect and genuine care, qualities that were missing from my biological family. Jessica was removed from Lisa's home after the second CPS investigation confirmed ongoing emotional abuse. She's living with her father's parents now and seems happier than I've ever seen her. She calls me sometimes, and we've developed a relationship based on honesty and healing rather than family obligation. Brandon chose to stay with Lisa, and I understand why. Sometimes, it's easier to accept abuse than to face the terrifying prospect of starting over. I hope someday he'll find the courage to seek help. But I've learned that I can't save people who aren't ready to be saved. Lisa lost her job at the school district and had to move to a smaller house after her divorce from David. The last I heard, she was working as a substitute teacher and telling anyone who would listen that I destroyed her life out of spite. She's never acknowledged that what she did to Emma was wrong, and I've accepted that she probably never will. My parents and I haven't spoken since the CPS investigations concluded. They send Emma birthday cards with gift cards inside, but there's no personal message, no acknowledgement of the grandchild they chose to abandon. Emma asks about them sometimes, but she's stopped expecting to see them. The hardest lesson I've learned is that family is not defined by blood. Family is defined by love, protection, and respect. The people who abandoned Emma when she needed support were never really family at all. They were just people who happened to share our DNA. I've also learned that standing up for what's right is often lonely. There were many nights when I questioned whether I had done the right thing, whether losing my entire extended family was worth it, whether I should have just accepted Lisa's version of events and moved on. But every time I see Emma laughing with her friends, every time she comes to me with a problem because she trusts me to protect her, every time she goes to sleep feeling safe and loved, I know I made the right choice. The truth is that I didn't destroy my family. I revealed that it was already broken. A family system that protects abusers and silences victims was never healthy to begin with. I just refused to continue participating in the dysfunction. Emma is now 10 years old, and she understands more about what happened that Christmas morning. She knows that some adults make bad choices, that being family doesn't excuse harmful behavior, and that she has the right to be treated with kindness and respect. Most importantly, she knows that I will always choose her safety over family politics, her well-being over social expectations, and the truth over comfortable lies. Sometimes, the people who claim to love you the most are the ones who hurt you the deepest. But sometimes, losing the wrong people makes room for the right ones to enter your life. Emma and I may have lost a family, But we found something better. We found peace, safety, and the unshakable knowledge that we can trust each other completely. That's a Christmas gift that will last forever. If you've experienced family betrayal or have had to make difficult choices to protect someone you love, share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might help someone else who's facing a similar situation. And don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories about courage, family, and standing up for what's right.